Welcome into Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I'm Meghan Peyton. We are here to recap what was one of the most painful Steelers games to watch. Steelers versus Chiefs ends up in an absolute blowout in a game where the Pittsburgh Steelers not only needed to win, but needed to at least show a little bit of improvement. Steelers lose this game 36-10. They take out Big Ben. That's how bad this game is going. This game went so bad that towards the end of the fourth quarter, they stopped playing it on national TV. There was like 5 minutes during this game where I could not watch it because Sunday Ticket had it blacked out and they took it off national TV. So the Steelers are obviously very frustrated after this loss against Kansas City, and it dramatically affects their playoff chances. We're going to get into what the AFC playoff picture looks like here in a little bit, but just to quickly give you some injury updates. First of all, I'm sure you guys are wondering about TJ Watt. Mike Tomlin says minor injury, nothing major. So the whole, groin issue that we keep talking about might not be as big of a deal as we think. However, Kendrick Green went out and so did Trey Turner. Those are two significant injuries to an offensive line that is already pretty bad. So I'd say this was just a terrible day for Pittsburgh. It was probably their worst game. I mean, it was their worst game of the season, and they absolutely did not have any room to have a game like this. Before entering this game, guys, they actually had the 7th seed in the playoffs. Now, of course, that is gone. A couple of interesting things that happened in this game. Deontay Johnson, who we do not see struggle like this, that fumble that he had was really crucial during this Steelers game. It obviously ended in a Chiefs touchdown. We do not see Deontay Johnson struggle with containing the football, but today, of course, that was a problem. He did have one touchdown in today's Chiefs game, so he kind of made up for it, but ultimately cost the Steelers a touchdown. However, it was such a blowout game that actually wouldn't have made a difference. So I ask you guys this, fill in the blank. It was over when fill it in. When did this game end for the Steelers? And I am going to say that this game ended after Deontay Johnson's fumble. All right, Deontay Johnson's fumble clearly caused, I'd say not only did it cost the Steelers the 7 points from the Chiefs touchdown, but it also just changed the momentum of this game because they end the first half looking really bad. We're hoping that Mike Tomlin gets this team together. They come out in the third quarter looking a little stronger. That didn't happen. They're finally driving down the field. Then this fumble happens, creates obviously this momentum back in Kansas City's hands. And I'd say that Big Ben is struggling. He's not looking good. And obviously a lot of that can be put on this offensive line, but we've got to talk about Big Ben for a sec because I understand the offensive line is young. They've got to step up, but so does Big Ben. It might be his last year here, but he's got to improve. He was 23 out of 35 attempts today, 159 yards, 1 touchdowns and 2 turnovers. He had a fumble and an interception. If you missed it, he was intercepted off a flea flicker that they thought was going to turn out great. It ends up turning out terrible, and Chiefs score on that as well. I do blame the offensive line, though. I'd say as much as Big Ben needs to step up, this offensive line is a mess, and they continue to get worse. These injuries are not helping them clearly. Kendrick Green, who has struggled with high snaps, it didn't look much better when they threw in J.C. Hassenauer after he got hurt. I thought Kendrick Green got benched at first. We find out later that he was actually dealing with a calf injury. We're not sure the significance of that. Trey Turner, not looking great as well, but also his backup's not much better. Chukuma Okorafor, again, struggling. I'd say Dan Moore Jr. had maybe a better game than in past, but still, this offensive line is the weakest area for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if they cannot get healthier, if they cannot improve to some degree, there's no way that the Steelers make it to the playoffs or even make it far in the playoffs if they do somehow slide by. But Big Ben can only do so much. So I say that to say, yes, does he need to step up? Absolutely. But he's almost 40 years old. We know that his career is coming to an end. And if he has a weak offensive line that cannot protect him to save the day, then what can you expect from Big Ben? So, of course, now we've got to put the blame on someone. So I ask you guys, who do you blame for this loss? This is the pinned comment for today's show. So make sure you go in, get your votes in. If you get the ad break, now is the time to let me know your thoughts. Honestly, I'm blaming everyone. Normally, I will pinpoint one person and say, or even just a position group. But in today's game, it was so bad in all areas. I'd say, I mean, special teams struggled. The offense obviously struggled, and the defense was terrible. This offense in the first half, though, was probably the worst that we've seen this 2021 season. The Steelers were down 23-0. This is coming out of the first half. They only had 6 first downs. They only converted 1 out of 6 third and fourth downs, and they only netted a total of 109 yards. Najee Harris, again, doing what he can to keep this Steelers offense alive. He can only do so much with, again, a struggling offensive line. Deontay Johnson looking a little uncharacteristic-like in this first half and obviously in the second half as well. We're going to talk more defense and more playoff picture, but if you are still a Steelers fan and believe in your Pittsburgh Steelers, now is the time to go get some great Steelers hoodies. They are up to 50% off if you go to chatsports.com/Steelers hoodie. There's some great ones out here, men's, women's. I like this pull-up one. They are on a great sale. And by the way, this sale is going to be ending, I can imagine, before the new year. So if you believe in your Pittsburgh Steelers, now is the time. Go get yourself some cool Steelers gear. I love the Aaron Andrews one. I've told you this. I have this actually in Saints, but I do want the Steelers one. This is my favorite line, Aaron Andrews. If you need something for your girlfriend, your wife, your sister, go ahead and check out chatsports.com/Steelers hoodie. Now back to what was one of the worst games of the Steelers schedule so far. I'd say TJ Watt, who was a big concern for me because he's been the only bit of hope, I'd say, for the Steelers defense, apart from maybe Cam Hayward, who's also played great. But TJ Watt went out with what we thought was maybe a rib injury. Mike Tomlin, as we said, calls it a minor injury. So he's dealt with a lot of stuff this season. He's dealt with groin. He's dealt with rib injuries. But Brooke Pryor on Twitter said to us that he asked a couple different ways if he's dealing with a cracked rib. TJ Watt says over and over, it's something minor. All right, so TJ Watt is still wanting to play. That's why he wasn't on the injury report this week leading up to today's game. So I'm going to trust him, expect that he is going to be playing these last 2 games of the regular season. And honestly, the Steelers will need TJ Watt if they want to slide by and make it into these playoffs. But right now they are back down to the others category after today's loss to Kansas City. Kansas City now with the first seed. If the playoffs were today, they are sitting at 11-4. Look on over to the others category. There is the Pittsburgh Steelers at 7-1. So it is still tight. It is not over yet, guys. Right now, Ravens are at the 7th seed, 8-7. So you see how that tie is affecting the Steelers right now. This is affecting them negatively, but they still do play the Ravens. So obviously we don't expect there to be a tie because, Steelers do have that Lions tie that is separating them from others. But I do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers can obviously still make it in. We're going to do a segment later this week on their path to the playoffs. But right now they are in second place in the AFC North. Bengals sitting at the top seed. I'm sorry, they're actually in the 3rd spot because the Ravens are at 8-7, Steelers 7-6-1, and the Browns at 7-8. Steelers play the Ravens last week of the regular season. That game, I'd say, is going to have a major impact on whether or not Pittsburgh makes the postseason. So like we said, last 2 games for Pittsburgh Steelers, they take on the Browns next week at home, then on the road to Baltimore to finish off the regular season against the Ravens. So, of course, we have to ask you guys, will the Steelers make the playoffs this year? This, again, is a topic that I wish we felt a little bit more confident about after today's game. Unfortunately, I'm not feeling super great about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I will ask you guys, if you think they will make the playoffs, go type P for playoffs or type O for out.